Welcome into Matchweek. I am Will West. That's Chris Carroll. What we do is give you the top topics in the world of association football, or soccer as we call it in the States, every Monday at 3:05 Eastern Standard Time. And Chris, it's been a busy week this week. Let's start it out with the UEFA, because there was some really interesting news that came out of interviews with Men in Blazers earlier last week, where the president of UEFA says that all leagues, and everyone is in favor of this, are going to be going the UEFA leagues to a salary cap format, and that they were having a meeting about it, discussing it on Friday. What are your thoughts on the idea of a salary cap in UEFA with European leagues, and do you think it's something that's viable?
It's funny how he says that everyone's in favor of this, except the most important people involved in this, and that's the players. So the players aren't in favor of it at all. Do I think it's viable? No. Do I think they could push it through? Possibly. But to me, this is, again, from UEFA, this is a blatant attempt, or not so blatant, but a subtle attempt in trying to stifle the growth of the new up-and-coming clubs onto the scene, like your Manchester Cities. I'm including them as the new ones because they haven't been around for decades and decades. The Newcastle Uniteds, they just see them as a threat to the old guard of the Real Madrids, Barcelonas, Manchester Uniteds. And it's like, how can we harness everybody in together here so that the big boys don't get left behind? And let's make it a level playing field. I think it's an artificial way of making it a level playing field. I don't agree with it, and I'm dead set against it.
Yeah, I think this is really, it's about the Americanization of the continued perceived Americanization of European football, and it's a bad move. The one thing that people I don't think realize in Europe is there's a lot of American ownership. There's only one sport in America where the salary cap works, and that's the National Football League. In baseball, they have no salary cap. In the NBA, they realized, hey, wait a minute, we have a salary cap, but now we can't sign the top players. Like, do you really want to see Grealish have to go somewhere else, or United have to send away Fernandez or somebody like that because they're above the salary cap? Mo Salah has to go somewhere else and play in a completely different country because Liverpool's over the salary cap, whatever that might be. It doesn't work in every single American sport. In the NBA, it didn't work. So now they have all of these exceptions where you can sign any of your players above the salary cap. Again, only one sport in the world has a salary cap that works, and that's the National Football League in the States. So why do this? And I agree with you. I think the motivation behind this is especially a concern among the other UEFA nations that England, because of their television deals in the States, their television deal in China, television deals in Singapore, India, Indonesia, that they're going to have so much more money than everybody else. So let's make sure that the Italian clubs can still compete, the German clubs, the French clubs, and the Spanish clubs, that they can all still compete, because if you have owners with deep pockets and you're making 4 times as much money off of your television rights deals as the other leagues are, you're going to be able to spend more money. So now we have in place what? You can spend 70% of what your total revenue is on players. One, it's not good for the players, I don't believe. 2, it's not good for the fans either. It could create some level of parity, but there's not really a ton of parity in most leagues right now to begin with. Frankly, England has the most parity of any of the European leagues. So what are we doing here, and why are we doing it? Whenever something like this comes up, I always ask this question, Chris: who benefits? And the only people that benefit are the leagues that frankly negotiated poor television rights deals people don't care about, or in countries where their teams are owned by business people who don't quite have enough money. So go sell your club to Chinese software people. Go sell your club to somebody in Qatar or the Abu Dhabi, the National Sovereign Wealth Fund, and you can have more money. Also, if you negotiate better television deals instead of just letting, in the States, ESPN put it on a streaming network or something like that, then you would have more money. And so, to me, this is about handcuffing and trying to restrict, to some extent, the dominance of the English Premier League in European soccer at the end of the day.
I agree, Will. Look, they've made an attempt before about restricting the growth of these clubs. It goes along the same lines of the Champions League. if you don't qualify for the Champions League by rights, then you can still qualify for the Champions League based on your history in the game. That's absolute nonsense, and they're just trying to shoehorn ways to get the traditionally big clubs still involved in all these, the glamour clubs involved, so that they can still make their money. And this is just another attempt. I don't think the public's going to go for it. I don't know whether it's it could well be the rise in American owners who know the traditions of the NFL and think that works great, and so then it should work great in soccer. But they can't. They're trying. If so, they're trying to reinvent a game that's been around for decades and decades, centuries, and it works the way it is. It works the way it is. That's the beauty of it. The free market. That's why you have the giant killings and the guys, the pyramid system. You're just going to change the complete pyramid system by doing this. And like you say, the biggest clubs aren't going to be able to buy the biggest players, your Salahs and your Grealishes and what have you. They're going to have to go to other leagues or go to other clubs. It's just a false situation, and I can't see the public buying into it either. And they're gonna wreck the game. These new owners and the big UEFA execs, they're gonna wreck what they've got.
Yeah, and I do think it's twofold. I think it's American owners who think they're going to turn this into the NFL, and you're not going to get 32. You're not going to get all 20 Premier League teams that have an equal or somewhat equal level of talent. That's not going to happen. The other thing I think I hope fans understand is this isn't that it's going to trickle down to other teams. So it's not like, well, Grealish stays at Aston Villa if there's a salary cap there. What it's going to be is Grealish goes to PSG or to Italy or to Spain or something like that, and he's just out of the league altogether. So I do think that some portion of this is, and I'm not to pick on the Spanish clubs. I think this is mostly about Madrid and Madrid more than anything else, because they will not be able to financially compete with the English clubs. They just aren't going to be able to do it when they bring in so much more money under the current rule system. And the other side, too, is I think you have a group of American owners who want to turn this a little bit into the MLS. The MLS has a start. That's the American League. I know about 30% of our viewership is in Europe. The MLS here in the States has a soft salary cap, but the players don't earn a lot of money, and the fans here just don't care. You have 2 or 3 markets where the fans care. Otherwise, it's a social event. It's not something you live and die for. The European pyramid, English soccer is far more popular in the United States. Champions League, far more popular in the United States than anything the MLS has ever done. So why would you want to go after that model versus try to have everything mimic the English model when it's the most popular sports product in the entire world? Nothing else is more popular. It doesn't make sense to me. I think the UEFA people want to do it to protect Madrid, and only to protect Madrid, and maybe a couple of the Italian clubs that in the past have been huge clubs that maybe you're concerned they can't financially compete anymore. But those clubs have been in the semifinals of the Champions League this year, not all of these English clubs. So there's no reason to mess with anything. Again, who benefits? No one. Fans don't benefit. Players don't benefit. Owners are already making money hand over fist. So the wealthy get even wealthier. I don't know that that's worth changing something that is frankly at the highest. It's at its pinnacle as far as public interest in the history of century plus history of these sports. So why change it now to a model that I will tell you as an American fan, for those of you watching in other countries, does not work unless you're the National Football League.
And I'm not sure it's just the Spanish that you're looking at as well, and the Italians, for example. I think there's the British, the English have representatives on that UEFA board as well. And Manchester United, we've seen in the last few years, have not qualified for the Champions League. Chelsea, look what they're going through at the moment. All of a sudden, these teams that have had it their own way, they're looking to protect themselves now as well. They're not going to take much persuading to vote for the change, because now you've got Manchester City coming in, and they've got Newcastle on the horizon, and whoever next is coming through, and they've all had it their own way for so long that that they're all quick to vote for what's going to protect them. So yeah, from twofold, whether it's the American system and the American owners that are trying to Americanize things, or whether it's the European big clubs trying to protect their own little, or what they've got, they're not letting anyone else in. I just think it's a bad move. I think it stinks, really.
Again, I don't know who benefits, but I'll tell you who doesn't. The fans. That's who doesn't. The supporters, right. The people paying the bills. Those are the people who don't benefit from this. Let's look at Chelsea. Speaking of paying the bills, Chelsea with a massive bill this year when it comes to wages that they've spent. No way in the world it would fit under a salary cap that they've had. It looks like Pochettino is going to be the new manager at Chelsea. Multiple outlets reporting that it's all but a done deal at this point. What are your thoughts for Poch at Chelsea and the fit there?
I think Pochettino could probably go into any club and do a good job. So I think for him, I think it's a good fit for him that way. Where I don't think it's a good fit for him is, or where it might not be a good fit for him is, are they going to give him time? Pochettino's he's a manager who can get it right over time and likes to build players and have the buzzword is a project and build. However, Chelsea, they're a win now club or out the door, and as we saw with Potter, and they sold him a story, a tall story, and said that he'd have time and he could have a project, and we saw how that worked out. So I don't know if they're selling the same story to Pochettino or not. He can do it. He seems to be popular wherever he goes. He went into PSG and sorted out a bit of a mess with some egos there. So I think he can go into Chelsea and do the same thing. He might not do it overnight, though, and it just depends on how long he gets.
My concern with Pochettino there is that team's lazy. You have a lot of really lazy players on Chelsea's squad right now. And the reason that Pochettino got pushed out at Spurs was players kept complaining about how hard training sessions are and things like that. But I think it can work because you'll have a legitimate system. He can win. I think you need a manager there who's going to push some of those lazy players that don't seem to want to give a lot of effort. I think Lampard's a guy that you went from Graham Potter, who's kind of going to be your friend, to Lampard, who's a guy who's going to kick you in the hind parts. But he's also he's not particularly great when it comes to tactics and things like that. I don't think Lampard is. And relationships. Pochettino is going to have good relationships, but he's going to push you hard. It'll also be interesting to see what kind of sell-off happens at Chelsea this year, right? So reading a piece about maybe they bring in Harry Kane, sell off Kai Havertz. So which players stay, which players go, because they're going to have to do something with as much money as they spent over the last 12 months. They're going to have to do something to kind of get close to some semblance of financial fair play. And they put a ton of money into that team, and that roster probably is a little bit bloated right now. But I think you have a lot of good young players that can press high, they can attack, they can play Pochettino's system. So I think the fit would be great. The problem is I think Pochettino can come in and be incredible. I think Pochettino can motivate the players. And none of that might matter because of how amazing Manchester City is right now. So, is this ownership going to be okay with Pochettino coming in, riding the ship, and finishing top four? Because right now, United, Eric Ten Hag's a fantastic manager, and United has spent, they have a massive payroll themselves, and they'll have expectations. Arsenal has the best young team in European soccer, period. End of discussion. They do. And so Liverpool has expectations that they're going to challenge for championships. So I just wonder what's going to be an acceptable level of success for Pochettino at Chelsea, because I think he could be incredible and still finish third on the table. And is that going to be good enough for this ownership? I will tell you, it's a lot better than we've seen from them at any point in time this season. So I think it should be at least in year one under Pochettino, and then we'll see where we go. But there's going to have to be some sort of a sell-off or something like that, because you're how many managers in at this point, and there's zero effort whatsoever from a lot of these guys. Guys who have shown effort on other clubs are not given the same effort when they're at Chelsea right now.
No, they're not. That's absolutely true, and that's why I'm a little bit puzzled about why Pochettino doesn't come in now, or what the holdup is, what the delay is. Is it Pochettino's side? Is it who's undecided here? Because if it's a done deal, you'd think Pochettino would come in for the remainder of the season. He's on a no lose. There's no damage can be done. He can sort out. He can have a look at them, see who he wants to keep, who he doesn't want to keep. They can get rid of them summer, and then buy a centre forward, and then go from there. But there seems to be a reluctance to. It's dragging on now, and is it going to happen? Isn't it going to happen? They're still a mess. It's only going to get worse. The feelings are going to get worse the longer this drags on. The players apparently are turning on the club and regretting signing long contracts, etc., because the writing's on the wall for them. They're not playing, and they're not playing a lot of time that they were promised. So it's just getting worse. I think there can be a good cup team next year. Chelsea, they could possibly win. They've certainly got the talent. I mean, they're not going to get burnout. They've got two squads of players, two 11-a-side teams of top quality. So I know they'll be getting rid of some of them. So they're still going to have a deep squad. So that's a good cup squad. Whether they're going to pull it all together, like you say, there's going to be so many quality to Arsenal getting it right, Man City getting it right in the league, Newcastle, Liverpool. It's amazing this season how a number of clubs are in a similar position, like Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, a lot of big clubs, but who are in that transition. But so, yeah, I don't know. I think they've got to give him a season at least, for heaven's sake, haven't they? And you'd think, and they could be a good cup team next year. They can't do worse in the league than this year, surely. I'm surprised that he's not jumping in now and having a month just to look at them, a few games to at least look at the players and see who are committed and who aren't.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, because if I was Pochettino, I would like to be able to run those players through training and things like that and say, okay, who's bought in, who hasn't. And here's the other concern that I would have. You may have the one thing at any job, this works the same way, any line of business whatsoever. If bad employees are tolerated, good employees become bad employees. That's just something that just happens in every workplace, no matter what the business you might be in. So having Pochettino there and say, okay, who turns it around once we get there and we start doing things the right way and we start, I would also just want the time to start implementing the system. And so there is an understanding during this offseason of what you're going to have to do. And if you want to leave, let's have a conversation and maybe you can go somewhere else. Who wants to be there? Who doesn't? That's going to be a big question that whoever whether it's Pochettino or somebody else, the next Chelsea manager is going to have to live with and deal with. And again, I love the system. I love the talent that they have. I do still have one big question about Chelsea, no matter who the manager is. And I think it might be even bigger if it's Pochettino. Who's going to play center forward next year? Because they, as much money as they've spent, they still don't have a striker. And is it going to be Harry Kane? If Pochettino's there, I would presume almost that Harry Kane's going to be the center forward there for Chelsea. But if it's anybody else, or who is it going to be, where you're going to spend the money, you got to figure out a way to get goals. And they have a lot of guys that can make a good run for you and have big names that can make a nice pass. They don't have a lot of guys that, to borrow a hockey parlance, can put the biscuit in the basket. And that's the question that I have for Chelsea next year is, that's great. Your midfield's loaded. You have 7 midfielders to choose from and 4 wings to choose from. And you know what I mean? 8 that could play at the back at most of the clubs in England, but you don't have anyone that can score. So what is the answer to that one? And Pochettino can't work magic. Pressing high and being on the attack at all time and staying on the front foot's going to be good, but you still need someone that can put the ball in the net.
That wouldn't go down very well in London, would it? Not with a white part of London. If Kane goes to Chelsea, wow, that would be something. Hey, you're right though, Will. If Kane got on so well with Pochettino, and from the things he says, still obviously respects the man. So you wouldn't bet against it happening, to be honest with you. They do. They need an out-and-out centre forward, and they got Lukaku out on loan. He's still a Chelsea player, I believe. And they've tried pretty much everybody in the squad up front. I mean, Frank Lampard played Kante up front. I can't believe it the other day. Yeah. So who knows? They definitely need a centre forward from somewhere. Who that's going to be? Who knows?
All right, let's talk about Harry Kane. A lot of United fans chatting at Harry Kane. We'll that they'll see him this summer. What do you think happens with Harry Kane? 1 more year under contract. He's out of his contract with Spurs after the 23-24 season. Do you believe Harry Kane gets sold this summer? Where do you think Harry Kane lands, Chris?
It's funny. It's almost gone, not quiet, but this big story sort of, I don't know, lack profile. You're talking about the highest, the England captain, highest record English goal scorer for the national team. You think it'd be really massive news and all over the, real headlines and a buzz. And yeah, there's talk about it. And you're right, the supporters were singing to Harry Kane, see you in August or whatever. where he goes, either, well, you've thrown up Chelsea there. You put up Chelsea, and I don't know if I was going to say I don't know if they could have sort of. It's not apathy now, but everyone's thinking, oh, here we go again. We've heard it before. I heard this all last year. Is he going to go? I don't know. Does anybody? Is it? It's getting to the point where does anybody care anymore other than the Spurs fans and Man United fans? Surely it's going to happen. If Pochettino goes to Spurs, that's the only way I think that Kane would stay at Spurs. If Pochettino goes there, but I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of like that. It's like the heavyweight boxing matches with Fury and what have you. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, and in the end, you just stop caring about it till you hear the announcement. You know, it's getting like that now.
I also think Kane. I think Kane's the most underrated athlete that I've ever in his own country that I've ever seen. I think that because Spurs have won nothing, and don't get me wrong, look, I'm a Spurs supporter, but as long as Daniel Levy is in charge and draws breath on planet Earth, I don't believe they'll ever win silver. I just don't believe he'll never spend enough, and he'll never spend in the right ways, and never bring in a manager that's going to be able to do business the way that you need to do business, and he'll never give them the support that they need. So because Harry Kane hasn't won silver anywhere, and because, I mean, let's be honest, he plays the way he plays. He's unassuming. He doesn't talk a whole lot. He's never going to be brash. You're never going to see him really get into it with another player. Harry Kane's boring. All he does is score goals, right? That's what he does. And I think sometimes scoring that many goals, but finishing fourth on the table, one of the, somewhere between fourth and sixth every year, people do get a little bit lulled to sleep when you see what the cities of the world are doing. Arsenal with so many great young players. Seeing United actually getting things turned around for the first time in a half decade. I think that makes people kind of just not think about Harry Kane a whole lot, or not realize that if not for Erling Haaland coming in, that he's the best player in England for a long time, and if not for Erling Haaland coming in, he'd still be the best scorer in England, even though Spurs are struggling and are an absolute train wreck. So I think that's one of the reasons why it doesn't grab as many headlines. But also because, Levy's kind of handcuffed him and not going to let him go anywhere else until he forces them to go somewhere else. He came up through Spurs, one of our own, and so he's not going to do anything through the media or act brashly or cause a public dispute that would probably force Levy's hand. So now you look at this summer, he probably tells Levy, I'm not going to re-sign with the club. And so Levy has to decide between summer and January, what am I willing to accept for Harry Kane, and how do I blow this up, and who's the next manager that's going to come in? And we'll see where he goes from there. If I was a betting man right now, I think United's the place that he lands. I don't think it ends up being Chelsea. I think that Kane, as much as he likes his guy Pochettino, I don't think that he getting sold and playing on another London club is something like him being a guy who's from England, he's aware of all of these things. So I think Manchester's where he ends up. I think he ends up with United next year. And I think they still don't win the Premier League.
Yeah, no, they probably won't. But I'll tell you what, one thing I'm sure of, I bet Manchester United, I bet the executives there are thinking, oh, my life, I've got to deal with Daniel Levy for the summer again. I bet they're just exhausted with that and not looking forward to that one bit, because it's going to get done the day before the start of the season, or be the day before the end of the window. And it's just going to be drawn out. And Harry Kane's going to be just left in limbo as well. He's not going to know what he's going to be doing. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think it's funny how a chain of events. It's where does Pochettino go? That's going to influence. That could influence a lot. But I think Kane, he must be thinking now. He must be thinking, I've got to win some silverware. And it's crazy how Mourinho was 1 week away from that League Cup final. I know the League Cup final isn't the Champions League, but he was 1 week away from that Wembley final, and they fired him. That could have been the monkey off the back. That could have been the silverware, and it could be so different. But maybe not enough to have kept Kane at Spurs. It's not the biggest trophy in the world, but it would have been something. But I think Kane, he's got to be. He was looking a year ago. He dug his heels in a little bit and then kind of relented. So I think this time he's playing his cards close to his chest. He's probably been smart. He's still signed with Spurs. There's one guy going to get Spurs out of trouble week after week. It's him, and so he's doing the professional thing. I would imagine by the end of the season, he'll be looking for a change and looking at Man United.
Yeah, now I do think it's a little different than last year, and I agree with you. The change is going to happen in that, again, he's never going to do anything, I think, to disrespect the club out of respect for the club. But I think it's a different place because it's in Harry Kane's best interest to go somewhere else. It's in Tottenham's best interest for Harry Kane to go somewhere else and to rebuild this thing altogether. You can keep doing exactly the same thing and expecting a different result. Part of me thinks Levy's okay with this because they're just making money hand over fist, right? I mean, you're selling out that stadium, great fan support, and you're allowing your stadium to be used by NFL teams, and you're making a ton of money off of that. And so, Tottenham's a corporation; it's not a club. And so, as far as Daniel Levy's concerned, it seems, but it is kind of in Tottenham's best interest to rebuild at this point, and I think it's been proven. So, I think it's going to be different, and I think that we will see him sold, but. You're right, as far as the headache that's coming with whoever tries to deal with Levy, because he's going to try to get he's going to ask for 120 million pounds or something like that to start with, eventually settle at 65 because of Kane's age, and that's where we end up. But it's probably a 3-month fight to get to that point where he finally does realize the actual cost for Harry Kane.
Would you say, though, I don't know if I should dare say this, but in Levy's defense, a year ago, would Levy have said to Harry Kane, look, we're going to spend some money this summer, this year. Give us another year. It's going to be different. And he has. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's spent a lot of money. Spurs have spent a lot of money, not the right way. They've spent it on the wrong players. It just hasn't gelled because I'm sure Harry Kane wanted to hear, we're gonna shore up this defense. We're gonna get some, and they bought some defenders. They bought some midfield players. They haven't bought the right ones. They got a forward line that any club would die for, but it's just been money spent the wrong way. And I think probably Kane's going to now think, well, look, I've heard, you can tell me we're going to spend money again next year. I heard that last year. It was spent the wrong way. So maybe Levy did. He didn't sort of con Kane into staying for another year. He said he was going to spend. He did spend, but it was completely the wrong players.
It was the wrong players too. They spent, but you're still spending Newcastle, Aston Villa money, not Liverpool, United, Chelsea, City money. You know what I mean? So It's still, yes, you spend, but you didn't spend close to what the other big clubs spend outside of Arsenal, but Arsenal's a really young team. Finally, let's look at the table right now. Manchester City takes over the top spot from Arsenal, still with a match in hand as well. Any chance that in your mind, that City doesn't finish this off and win the Premier League again?
No, no chance. I think no chance that they're not going. I think Man City are now. They've broken Arsenal. They've caught them up. They've chased them down. They've overtaken them, and I can't see any other outcome than Manchester City winning this. So I think the top four looks like it's done and dusted to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. So you don't think Liverpool catches Newcastle for that fourth spot?
No, it looks like they've got too much to do now in too shorter space of time. And I think Newcastle are going as well as Liverpool. I think Liverpool have got a good run in, actually. They've got a decent run in, as do Spurs. So that's got to be an interesting race for fifth spot, I think, between Liverpool and Spurs. But no, I think that top four is just set as it is now.
Do you think Liverpool does anything if they finish outside the top four, like the Europa League is not anything they're going to be necessarily incredibly excited about? But do you think that Liverpool looks at it and says, okay, that we finished fifth, that's a disappointing finish, but we brought in some young players. They're going to have another year to mature in Klopp's system. Does Klopp say, I want to take on the project of rebuilding with some of these young players and an aging Salah, aging Becker, aging Virgil van Dijk? Do you think that there's any change that happens to Liverpool? Do they just kind of run it back with the same guys?
No, I don't. I think there'll be change. I don't see a change in the manager. I think Klopp will still be there. He hasn't made any noises that he wants to be out. He still seems enthusiastic for everything. When you see him on the sideline, on the touchline, he's always into what's going on. No, I don't see anything. I think they'll have a revamp. I think they'll definitely be buying and selling. And so he'll be up for that project. It's going to be more. They're doing okay with what they've got now. It's a little bit like Spurs. I always say about Spurs, and there's a crisis at the club. But look where they are in the league. They're still fifth or sixth or fourth, or it's like Liverpool are still there. So it's not a disaster. They're way behind Man City, of course. but they're still in with a shout of Champions League football, Champions League soccer. So no, I don't think it's a big panic stations and everything's going to change.
Other end of the table, massive match today between Leicester City and Everton.
Yeah, it is. It is a huge match, and then there's another one in a week's time. Forest Southampton. I think Southampton will be done and dusted by then. I think they've just got too much to do. It really is. It really is two from four for me now. I think Leicester are going to get themselves out of it. I think there's just too much experience, and I think we might disagree a little bit on the quality of Leicester's team. I think they've got a few players in there that are decent players, and on their day they're good. I just see Everton with too much to do. They're a point off at the moment. Everybody else, I think that point is going to be huge at the end, and I can't see, looking at Leeds running, I can't see Leeds winning another game. I think Leeds got left? They got Man City, Newcastle, West Ham, so they might get something from West Ham and Spurs. So their last four games, I can't see Leeds getting a win out of that, to be honest with you. So I got Will, I got Southampton, Everton, and Leeds going down.
Yeah, Everton going down. Wow, look, I hate that because I love Sean Dyche as a manager, and my concern with Sean Dyche is he going to get another Premier League shot if he's not able to save Everton this time? But man, they just don't have goal scoring options right now, right? So it doesn't seem like, and they're working hard, but they're making dumb mistakes still. So that's part of it. Leicester, I like them at the front, like them at the back. I just think they're so slow at midfield at times. You just watch teams run by them, but they're capable of counterattacking goals and things like that. Really, the winner of Leicester City and Everton today stays up. Loser goes down. If they draw, then, well, I mean, it maybe end up being the three of them. But I agree with you about Leeds. It does look like, and really, it could be Leeds for Southampton, done and dusted at that point as well. And both Everton and Leicester City stay up. That, I think, is the most likely scenario. But man, I just watched a lot of Leicester City and Everton lately, and I'm not particularly confident in either one of those teams. If they could both find a way to lose today, I would probably say that's what happens.
Yeah. Hey, you never know. It's been a crazy season. Wouldn't write anything off.
That's Chris Carroll. I'm Will West. Look, subscribe. We're giving you content every single week, and we will be back here all through the season. Some things here in the off season as well, and looking forward to it next year. So yeah, like and subscribe if you like this type of content. You want to see it in your timeline moving forward. Chris, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Will. Been fun again, mate.
And we'll see you next week on Matchweek.